Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Talk Conversation Series, a peer knowledge resource by the CXOs for the CXOs. Now to our host, Kanika Goswami.
Good morning, Jonathan. For the listeners, we have Jonathan Shulman, who's a Vice President Business Development at iconectiv with us. Hi, Jonathan. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Before we start with the questions, it would be really nice if you could give us a little bit of a brief on what iconectiv does as a company.
Sure, happy to do that. So I'll start with a little bit of a history on iconectiv. And so iconectiv was born from the original AT&T in the United States. We were part of the research and development arm that was created after the telecom divestiture in 1984. And for more than 35 years, we've served as the authoritative partner to global communications industry, supporting 5,000 companies across 5 continents and connecting more than 2 billion people every day. Our mission and our focus is that we believe in a world without boundaries and are critical in helping people and their businesses access and exchange information simply, seamlessly, and securely. And one of the big factors that we're focused on and that we'll probably be talking a little bit about in our discussion today is the importance of trust in all things associated with communications and networks across the global service provider and telecommunications ecosystem.
Thanks, Jonathan, for that lowdown. Now, so the first question I have for you is, in your opinion, what are the various communication channels that businesses are trusting today, given the unprecedented pandemic times? So these are not normal times. What do you think works best for today?
Right. So what we're seeing today is in some respects a continuation of what's been happening over the last number of years. So the primary business communication channels that are being used to engage with customers are voice, text, and chatbots. And these are kind of traditional forms of one-to-one consumer engagement versus the traditional mass communication that we have that was from radio and TV. I think what we've seen over the last 6 months plus is that COVID has really accelerated demand from customers to have a 24/7 experience. And even more so now than before COVID, they expect their businesses that they engage with to be available when they're available. So what we've seen now is that businesses have also accelerated their development of multi-channel strategies to engage with customers and how they want to be engaged. So one of the key things across these direct connections, of course, which helps support and drive the engagement for the businesses, is that they are built on strong foundations of loyalty and trust. One of the most powerful communication channels that we've seen and that we're directly involved with is what's called rich business messaging. So if you could imagine the ubiquity of traditional text messages on steroids, that's kind of what we say in the industry. It's basically bringing all the features and functionality of a mobile web experience to your text messaging inbox that's native to your smartphone. And a few examples of this are, for example, engaging with your airline carrier for detailed and interactive flight information, things like carousels to shop for items. Again, all of this directly in your messaging inbox, and being able to purchase directly and engage directly with the customer service folks, the sales folks, and anyone on the business side. So what we've seen is this keeps consumers engaged in the buying cycle without a risk of them being distracted. And of course, it's one-to-one communication focused specifically on the needs of the customer. So as part of all of the more traditional elements of engagement that businesses are using across voice, text, and chatbot is the emergence of the rich business messaging, which we're very excited about.
What is a rich communication service and how do you think it can improve consumer engagement for contact centers?
Right. So the rich communication service really covers both voice, text, messaging, and all the different ways that businesses and in particular contact centers may engage with customers. And it's really a multi-channel, multi-platform approach that provides a trusted way for contact centers to engage with the business, with their consumers. And one of the key factors there is this verification process, which is being developed now, so that when these contact centers reach out to consumers, that the consumers know that it's a legitimate contact center, or it's actually coming from the business itself. Because that's one of the greatest challenges that we face in the industry right now, is the rapid expansion of robocalling and robotexting, where many people are no longer picking up their phones or answering their messages, even when it's a legitimate business reaching out to them. So one of the key priorities and focus of rich communication services, rich business messaging, is to address that issue and find a way for the contact centers and businesses in general to validate and verify to consumers that they are legitimate businesses, thus increasing the ability for consumers to actually pick up, whether it's a phone call or respond to a text message, because they can verify that it's a legitimate business reaching out to them.
Right. So, as you say, one of the biggest challenges that is being faced today is customers cannot make out if it's a person at the other end of the line or a chatbot. What are the other challenges that you see with this kind of communication channels today, especially more than ever before?
So, with the new channels, a lot of it is education. So people have not yet become accustomed to using their messaging for these more enhanced services that they might typically use for web browsing on their mobile phones. The other thing is understanding whether or not they're actually able to respond to a call and answer that call. So in other words, do they know the different trusted ways that they can receive messages? Is the brand, for example, showing up when they receive a call? Can they trust that that's actually the brand that it says it is? And the same with text messages. Do they have, for example, the logo? Is the logo verified when it comes in? And these are all the types of things that the businesses need to learn more about, but also that the consumers need to understand that this type of service is now available. And that's really where we're right on the brink across the industry of these services becoming more available and consumers becoming more familiar with them.
Okay. Now, what would you think that a legitimate business should do to protect and insulate this direct connection with the customers that they've always had, despite technologies changing, channels, evolving in both ways, the risk of fraudsters, scams, and robot conversations happening more often than before? What do you think you can still do to insulate yourself and maintain that relationship which you already have with your customers? So there should be no lack of trust between the brand and the customer.
Right. Yeah, it's a really, really important question for businesses and for the industry in general. As you said, the key for establishing trust between the person or the businesses sending the messages and the people or consumers receiving it is absolutely fundamental. And we've seen, of course, that a lot of established businesses or new businesses are very, very concerned about anything that might impact that trust that they've developed and honed across multiple channels over many, many years. So I think a number of the things that the businesses can do, and this is what's being developed in the industry, is, for example, to secure, in addition to their name when it shows up, when someone receives a call or a text message, so that the name of the brand has been verified, there's actually a verification mark that's being developed, which is a visual indicator to show that it's a verified and established brand. Another thing that's being worked on in the U.S. is a standards-based protocol called STIR/SHAKEN, which is a foundation for the trust and verification of voice calls. And what that does, and it's really across the entire ecosystem and the different carriers and operators and VoIP providers, is that STIR/SHAKEN assigns attributes to a call that affects how it's treated and ultimately presented to the recipient. And that's how the consumers know that it's authentic. So it's really being set up to stop the robocalls or to address the robocalls so that only legitimate calls will get through, and that people will know that the calls that do come through have been validated and authenticated. And you can go a step further than that and add a logo to that call as well. So this is now being developed across both voice, chatbots, and text messages to really enhance that capability. So a lot of the businesses, because this is a new area, they're still learning about this, and that's part of the outreach from companies like iconectiv and many in our industry that are already working closely with both the messaging aggregator partners as well as the business enterprises to help educate them in what's coming available in the marketplace.
So, what will happen for those enterprises that will do nothing and take a wait and see approach? You just said there is still some amount of confusion in the market. People are not sure how they should be responding to a whole bunch of, outreach ideas. But if they do not take a call or a stand right now and act on it, what do you predict might happen? What would be the risk involved?
Yeah, so it's really lost. It will be, I guess, two things. One is without taking advantage of these new channels and these evolving channels, they'll really miss an opportunity to engage with their consumers where their consumers are active and where the consumers want to be engaged. So it's not so much about saying this is the exclusive channel. Obviously, there are many channels to engage with consumers for businesses, but the businesses really need a multi-channel approach to make sure that they're reaching their consumers where they want to be reached, whether it's on a website, whether it's through rich business messaging or through phone calls. One thing's for sure is as the demographics change, younger demographics are more inclined to use these types of services. They've become accustomed to them, and they're also accustomed to having their brands available whenever and wherever they want to find them. So what we're going to see, I think, is for businesses are going to miss out on opportunities to reach their customers, engage with them, and drive their business forward in as well as they could otherwise. So we think there'll be lost business, there'll be lost return on investment and things like that.
Right, if they decide to not act on what they should right now, and
right.
This would be the last. Okay.
I was just going to add. I didn't want to put too many statistics in here, but just the benefits for the rich business messaging are significant in messaging in general. And just one statistic I have in my notes is that 83% of consumers contact a business over messaging to learn about a product or service, 76% to get support, and 75% to make a purchase. So, and even today, with some of the challenges associated with it, it's a very important channel to consumers. As many as 45% of people reply to branded text messages that they receive, and we have good results that show that a branded message, the return rates are much higher than an unbranded or an unverified text message blast. So, just a couple statistics, and we have lots of business cases that show. Again, lost opportunity, lost ability to drive sales and customer service, as well as ultimately the brand. So they'll be missing out if they don't look into opportunities to test and explore and ultimately use these types of services.
Right. And how do you think that both hardware and software in terms of technology can keep telecommunication networks secure from fraudulent activity, particularly at this point in time? And the next part of my question would be, I can ask right now so you can have the right train of thought. What happens when we are out of the situation? Will the world order change completely, you think, or it will be just an extension of how we are operating right now? What would you think about that? Any ideas?
Sure. So I'll take the first part of the question first, which is about how the technology can be used to really help not only leverage the new messaging capabilities, but also to protect from fraudulent activity, if I make sure I understand that correctly. And it goes back to some of the things we were talking about earlier. And really first and foremost is ensuring that legitimate communications reach consumers, and that those communications can be verified in a unified way that has clear established rules for business operations and processes. So in other words, for all the legitimate business users or business companies out there that want to utilize this type of service and communications in general with consumers, it's in everyone's best interest to ensure that there's a system in place and processes in place that allow that their legitimate communications to reach consumers and to be unified, verified, and trusted. So that's really the first point. And what is needed and what is being developed, this is one of the interesting challenges in the marketplace. Is there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of different players. So it's been somewhat difficult to get everyone around the same goals and table and pages. And there's, as you can imagine, lots of different standards and so on. But we believe what's needed and what's being developed, and we're one of the leaders in the industry for this, is a unified centralized platform that allows businesses to be authenticated across all the communication channels, voice, text, and chatbots, in order to provide a single lens to consumers. And this way, if someone's initiating a call coming from AT&T, but the call is finishing, or a text is finishing on another provider, if they're using different messaging platforms, all the different players and in between, that there's a single authenticated means to do that, regardless of where it's coming from and where it's going. And we think that type of standard-based solution will really help facilitate the trust and the verification that's needed for the marketplace. So that's kind of one of the keys there. I think to answer the second part of the question, the COVID has really accelerated a lot of these trends. So these were things happening already. I see that that's going to continue, and it's just certainly not going to go away. So things have been changed probably permanently by COVID, but even if it goes back somewhat to where it was before, we've seen this trend towards more 24/7 engagement, multi-channel platforms, and the need to continue to verify services and messaging and voice calls so that the trusted calls can actually get through will become even more critical over time.
Right. And thank you so much for this interaction, Jonathan, for making time for us. Thanks very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow us on social media for regular updates and new content.